You do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, good morning, folks. How are you? Do you like my bed here? I haven't had my shower yet. I know, but I just had to be here to tell you about a few things going on this morning. Who's awake and out of bed this time of the day? Oh, God, there's a few of you. G'day, Rose, Margot, Deb. I think Michelle was first in the room. It'll be cold down where you are this morning, I bet. Just getting a little bit of a shiver now just thinking about it. Good morning, Alan. Nice to have you in too. Slots are fun. Nice to have you in. Well, we've got a little early crew. How nice it would be. Actually, years ago, I used to run a show. I think it started at 5, and we ran it till 6 a.m. It was like the early Wormers Club or something we called it. It was actually in Horsham in the Wimmera in Victoria. And it was basically nurses who were only awake at that time of the day. So we used to have a bit of a chat show that went on for an hour. So it came in quite handy, actually, because my daughter was born in the Wimmera Base Hospital in Horsham. And I knew most of the nurses by the time we got there. It's really cool. Just seeing if anybody else has popped in. So you're all saying hello to each other. Aussie Sue, God love you, woman. I thought you'd be out swimming around the island by now this time of the morning. It might be a bit chilly. Can I just point out, thank you to everybody who's bought a ticket in our raffle. We are so close to closing off draw number 5 and being able to give away $750 and a gram of gold. So by so close, I mean we have like 60-something odd tickets left to sell. So if you are feeling the urge and you haven't spent $2 yet, then please go over to merch.vofhq.com and click on the Sanctuary $750 link. That'll take you to the page where you can spend $2, buy a ticket, hopefully pick yourself up $750 or the gram of gold. And if that doesn't work, well, you'll know that you're going to help some good causes along the way, including the Donkey Sanctuary. They can never get enough feed. They always need help when it comes to medical issues and vet sort of stuff. So every little bit helps. We send them as much as we can. We would like to send them more. And we can only do that with your support. So only got, like I say, a bit over, I think, hang on a minute, let me have a look. So 59. Okay, so about, I don't know, I'm not good with maths. So call it 80 tickets left. And we'll have 2 winners in this lottery, as I was saying. So good luck with that. I guess before I get into what I was going to talk about with Paul Offy this morning, I want to mention Black Sheep's dad, Jeff. A couple of pictures of him. This one in particular is, I think, one of Black Sheep's favourites. So I just wanted to let you all know that Jeff passed away within the last couple of hours. So about an hour and a half ago or so, as I record this or set this out live. So keep Black Sheep in your prayers today, and Jeff, of course, who has made the transition. So a sad day, but I know that Black Sheep, as I do, feels the love out of our Voice of Freedom family, and he feels it very strongly. In fact, the comments on yesterday's show, I think he sent me a text last night after he'd read them, and he's deeply moved by them, and he's amazed he has so many friends. But that's really what the Voice of Freedom is all about, especially the chat, which you guys have made. It is just a wonderful, wonderful group of people who are very supportive of everybody in the wonderful, wonderful group of people, and quite a few from the outside of it. So I thank you for your prayers for Jeff over the last couple of days, and I know obviously it'll be a trying time for the next week or two. But Black Sheep is up for the task. He's a very good man, and of course, any support I can give him, he knows all he's got to do is reach out. Anything that we can do to help. So good on him. All right, let's move forward a little bit. The Freedom Truck. Now, you might remember Paul Offy took his brand new truck down to Canberra, and through a course of events that weren't necessarily of his own design, he wound up being, what's the gentle way of putting this? He wound up being guided into areas where maybe better things, other things should have been considered. The police were not clear in their direction, amongst other things. One thing led to another. He wound up at the top of Commonwealth Avenue in front of Parliament House, and the police didn't like him there. They carried on tremendously, being very confusing in everything that they did, and eventually wound up jumping on his truck, smashing his window, and eventually arresting Paul. He gave himself up to the police. He didn't escape. He got out of the cab, and the police muddled around the truck for some time, and so did he. He stayed around for an hour or so just watching them, and then nobody came up to him, so he eventually walked up to them and said, well, do you want me? And they said, oh, yeah, we'll have you. From that time, they jumped up the charges that he was facing, and made it so that he had to go to the Supreme Court to fight these charges. He has been trying to put together a legal team now for 3 years to fight those charges. And because of the nature of the charges, the way that they upped them in gravitas, if you like, it meant that a Supreme Court trial costs a lot more money. You've got to get a barrister to represent you and all that sort of stuff. And I guess if I've learned anything through the last 3 years of trying to help the Offy boys in any way that I can, I've learned that you can expect nothing out of the legal system, nothing out of the legal system by way of fairness, nothing by way of honour. It's all about money, greed. Paul Offy is representing himself in the Supreme Court. Day one yesterday went pretty well. Why is he representing himself? Well, he's doing that because of the unbelievable, I don't want to call it lies, but I will call it deceptions, it appears to be, that the legal fraternity have given him and his brother over the last 3 years. They all talk a big game when Paul goes to them with the charges and says, woohoo, here's what I've got. They all go, yes, great, let's fight those, because, Paul is adamant he did not commit the crimes that he's been charged with. And he refuses to plead guilty to anything that he didn't do. Now, this is how modern day law works, apparently. You plead things out. They load you up with as many stupid charges as possible. They know that legal aid will only legally aid the other side. They're there to talk you into taking a plea deal. And I'm not discounting the fact that sometimes that isn't a bad thing to do. But if you are forced to admit guilt to something you didn't do so that you don't face blown up extortionate charges which have just been laid as weight against you and probably couldn't survive a test in a court, where are all these lawyers who want to get up and fight? I grew up in a time where there were great legal shows on TV. Okay, they were American legal shows, although there was a great one, a great Australian one, Carson's Law, from memory. But I grew up, watching LA Law and Boston Legal and all those things where, the lawyers get in and they fight for their clients, and it's the argument, and it's very righteous and honorable, and that's bullshit. I mean, it might happen in America because they're a dog-eat-dog sort of legal fraternity over there. There's so many of them, and I guess it's getting that way here. But my experience with the legal fraternity here in this country is that they don't want to fight. They don't want to believe their client is innocent of all charges, much less go into court and fight for that. And here is where the legal system has changed. You used to be innocent until proven guilty. Now, that seems to be assessed well before you go into any court by your lawyer. And then this plea deal, if you're unlucky enough to have to deal with legal aid, will obviously be made to look very attractive. Now, I was with Paul in Canberra when legal aid were trying to give us aid, and I stopped that meeting and we walked out because the only thing we were aiding was the opposition. And some of those reasons will become very clear as the course of this trial progresses. However, we could not get a barrister to come on board for any reasonable kind of money. They all want $250,000 or $200,000. I don't know what for. Well, I do know what for, because it's all about money and it's all got to be shared and somebody has to pay. Okay, and the deeper you go into the court system, or the higher up into the court system, the more you have to pay, particularly if you want to get out of it without going to jail. Well, there has been a lot of to's and fro's in this battle, and last week you heard, last Friday night, you heard from Michael Offy. A number of submissions were thrown out of court last week, essentially enabling them to go ahead with the Supreme Court trial starting yesterday, with Paul having no representation whatsoever. Luckily, we have some friends who have no real legal standing as such, but an awful lot of knowledge. And Michael, Paul's brother, has done so much work on this case that he would essentially be, the solicitor, the advising solicitor to any barrister anyway. However, Michael isn't allowed to sit with his brother at the bar table during this trial. Michael can sit in the court and is allowed to, but the argument yesterday morning first up, aside from hearing a couple of other notices, including one where the prosecution had to apply leave to change the date of the offences that were listed in the charge sheets because those dates were incorrect, and they realised that on the day they're going to trial. This is a well-prepared... Of course, Paul objected to that change. They've had 3 years to get the dates right, and they only discovered it that day. However, the judge overruled that objection and let them change the dates. Gives you an idea of how this is probably going to go. However, submissions were made for a Mackenzie's friend for Paul. And now a Mackenzie's friend, for those of you who are unaware, is able to sit with Paul at the bar table and can advise him on certain things. The Mackenzie's friend cannot speak for Paul and cannot stand up and be heard at the bar table, but can advise Paul on what he should say, or if he should object, or, pardon me, a variety of other things. Now, the person there who's helping them out has been all over this case and has been just an amazing source of information, pardon me, paperwork, common law as well as their law. It has been a huge effort to get to where we are at the moment, and it's not an optimal place to be. But going in to day 2, it's going to be interesting. The upshot was yesterday, after the Mackenzie's friend was allowed, and the prosecution objected strenuously to that. However, I think the judges, they'd knocked every other submission on the head. Everything that Paul has put forward that would give some semblance of balance, some semblance of fairness to the proceedings, all of that has been denied him. And I think the judge probably felt, by knocking back a Mackenzie's friend and leaving Paul at the bar table alone, was probably a step too far, leaving themselves wide open for appeals. And in fact, the court was advised yesterday that regardless of the outcome, if they lose here, there's going to be an appeal on so many different grounds, procedural fairness notwithstanding. So Paul was at the table yesterday, and first witnesses were called. That female police officer that was at the top of Parliament House was the first officer called. I think they had another one come on as well later. As for cross-examination, that will happen this morning for the rest of the day, potentially. And Paul will have to cross-examine. So obviously a lot of work has been put into those questions overnight, and a lot of rehearsing done. For those of you who are unaware of Paul's brain injuries, he has 3 brain injuries, which put him into a moderate category, if you like. He's still very high functioning. Don't think for a moment that this has damaged him in any significant way. He's capable of driving heavy vehicles. He's just got his multi-combination, so he can drive B double and triples. So he loves driving big vehicles, loves driving big rigs, and is a very safe driver. And his brain injury doesn't impede his ability to drive in any way, shape, or form. In part, the reason why they wanted him to admit to certain things was that if he did that, even though he didn't believe he did them, it would mean they could, and probably would, have taken his licenses off him and used his brain injuries as an excuse for that. So that's why he shied away from any of that sort of plea deal, if you like, because they were going to use it against him to take his license off him. There is no grounds for that in any way, shape, or form, as he's passed his most recent multi-combination driver's license test only a month or 2 ago. So Paul does have comprehension, not so much comprehension, it's being able to formulate, a bit like I'm having trouble now, formulating the words and getting them out in a way that allows his mind to move on to the next subject. If you ask Paul a question or 2 questions in one sentence, Paul will need to answer the first question fully and completely before he can address the second question, which might be your more urgent one. And you'll need to get a full and complete answer. He can't just leave it alone. He can't just say, oh, yes, that's how you fix this. He has to tell you exactly. And that's just a function of what's happened to him. Paul's opening statement yesterday, God love him, must have been terribly nerve-wracking for him to put out. But the jury yesterday, I think, would have got a very good understanding of the kind of bloke Paul Offy really is. He's a very genuine man, wouldn't hurt a fly, and does have some issues delivering speeches. And he apologised at the opening of his opening to the jury, saying, at times you're going to find me very frustrating because I have to, this is just how I am, this is how I speak, and I have to put it forward like this. If you have problems with that, I apologise, but this is the situation we've been left in. So yeah, he's doing an awesome job representing himself. And if you happen to be in Canberra, folks, and you're wondering what you can do for the day, and you don't want to go and check out all the Masonic filth and other bits and pieces, why don't you head into one of the dens of iniquity at the Supreme Court and help Paul and the team show a little bit of support. the court is open, and I know that there are a number of the Canberra Standers and the crew in Canberra who are popping in and supporting him throughout the day. I think there were about 10 or 15 of them there yesterday. So thank you, everybody who's managed to get to Canberra and help Paul. I've got a bit going on here at the moment, and my goal is to get down there, but I may not by the time this trial is over. My goal is to get there, though, so fingers crossed we can get there. He has been charged with so many ridiculous charges, and it's quite clear that the AFP have, on a number of occasions, made moves to, and possibly did, sell the truck. And because of court proceedings that, we eventually managed to hear about and get to, we were able to save that. And there are indications being that the truck has been moved off site and then put back on site again. Why would you go to the expense of getting a big heavy haulage unit to move it? But anyway, there is a lot of strange and weird things going on about that truck, and there is somebody in the AFP, we know the name, who wants it. And for some reason or other, this is why they're putting up such a fight. Paul is going to be, as I say, defending himself for the course of this. The trial has been set down for something like 3 weeks. The boys have an awful lot of witnesses that they are going to be bringing forward, and the first of them will be coming, I think, towards the end of this week. I'm not exactly sure, and we can't really talk about how the court will view those sorts of things, but I expect a lot of the testimony to come from those witnesses will directly counteract anything the police have to say. The police have put forward one video in evidence so far, and all that seems to do, well, it doesn't aid their case. Look, that we're commenting on it. I don't think it aids their case. And you will be able to see and hear a lot more of Paul's evidence when he stands up to defend himself. There will be a lot of video evidence there, as well as a lot of statements from the people who were there at the time around the truck and working around it. So keep an eye out for what's going on there. We will hopefully be able to keep you up to date. I'm going to be in touch with somebody every day down there, getting a bit of an update on it all. I'm trying not to bother the Offy boys too much, because after a heavy day in court, it doesn't end there. They've got to go away and prepare for the next day. And as I said, it's sort of a 6-7 hour job to prepare for that. So they're having a bite to eat. They're going back to wherever they're staying, and then they're working on the case until 1 o'clock in the morning, getting up again at 6, getting themselves off to court. So it's pretty full on. But I am disgusted that we cannot find a barrister in this country who can't look past how much money it's going to cost. And I know that there are barristers that want to look past, that would do it for free. They're not allowed to. All right? The court won't let them practice unless they're bringing money to the table. That's my understanding of it. Now, it might be a very gross understanding of it, but in practice, that's what it looks like to me. We have had one barrister in particular who unfortunately got sick, who was going to do the world for us, but got sick. But he was facing a huge pushback from the court because he was willing to, offer his services for next to nothing. It wasn't for nothing, but it was for next to nothing. And that was on the basis that he didn't need to employ other lawyers to do the backgrounding work and do the casework. And all of that had been done already by Paul and his brother Michael, and more particularly Michael. And, this guy should be awarded his law degree simply for the volume of work that he's done on this case. He's done amazing. Yes, the Masonic Order of the Red Men. You're 100% on the money, J1. And where else would it be stronger but in Canberra, can I ask you? Anyway, it's just a shit system. It would be very nice if we could find a barrister who would do it for a reasonable fee. And without getting into it, we've raised a lot of money for these boys, not just here at the Voice of Freedom. Arvy's helped them raise it. I think Michael has helped raise money for them. Aussie Cossack put a bit of money in, a little bit, right at the very start of things. That money, in one case, was used to pay for certain things through the court, and I understand, that's fair enough. But then when it came time to actually represent, that lawyer wanted a lot more money, couldn't find it, so therefore it all sort of fell in a hole. Therefore, that money that went to the court for whatever documents were required was kind of wasted, but kind of not. Then there was another bunch of lawyers. There's $38,000 sitting in a trust account somewhere from a bunch of lawyers who were meant to hand over a case file months ago when they were allowed. It was an amicable split. They were allowed to get out of the case simply because the boys couldn't raise $250,000 for this barrister. And they, as lawyers, didn't want to get caught with the case when there was no money in it going to the court, because they've got to explain to the court why there's no money in it and who's going to pay. All right? And the court can make sure that the lawyers pay. If it's not going to be the defendant, and it's certainly not going to be the court, and it's not going to be the prosecution, it'll be the lawyer who pays. So that's what they shake about, I think. You've got to be in the club to know, don't you? But I'm staggered the weak way that law is practiced in this country. And practiced is the word, because nobody's mastered it yet, except for the bastards who are sitting at the top of the pyramid taking in the cash. And making whatever decision, I guess, they feel is right after doing so. Speaking of doing what's right, Parramatta Council in Sydney are a strange bunch of people. Now, they've refused to let a group of white Australians — now, I don't know if this is white Australia, or I don't know if this is, some bunch of neo-Nazis, and I don't believe it is, but they're refusing to let a group of white Australians hire one of its Parramatta Council venues for a political meeting. Why? Well, they're citing far-left policies on diversity, inclusion, and social justice. I shit you not. The town hall has been hired by the Labor Party, the Greens, an Indian group, a Chinese religious group, an African group, a Filipino group, a refugee advocate group, and a whole heap of other diverse groups. But white Australians cannot hire Parramatta Council venues. Oh, God. What do you do? What do you do? Well, hopefully people are starting to wake up. That's all we can ask for. Apparently people are starting to wake up in India a little bit, sounding the alarm. A lot of people are falling off the budgie perch who have had the jibbity jab, and the Indian government is starting to take notice. Of course, the Indian government have been noticing those sorts of jabs for some time, and in fact kicked Bill Gates out of India many years ago now, citing tests that Gates had been doing in this area of jabs and a large number of deaths in regional parts of India on the people that they'd stuck this new solution into. Gates, I believe, has not gone back to India under threat of being arrested and put on trial there. And if you delve a little deeper into the Q white hat theories, you would probably believe that Bill Gates had already been taken back to India, had faced trial, been found guilty, and had been executed for the crimes that he committed. along with Melinda, can I point out. However, the truth of it, well, I guess we'll all get to it one day, but sooner, later, I'm not sure. Here's something horrendous for Victorians. God, I don't know how you do it, folks. I really don't. Melbourne researchers are calling on parents of newborns to help with a promising new jab trial. They're recruiting babies to test a drug that could provide crucial protection against a deadly disease. Pneumococcal. Pneumococcal? They're looking for 25 infants before November. You get 4 free jabs. What sort of a parent? Well, we know the sort of parent. We know the sort of parent. The compliant one. The brain mushed one that will allow their newborn to be jabbed with an experimental solution. I was talking to some people the other day who are very motivated individuals to stand up and fight for Australia. Fight this government, this unelected, foreign force that has invaded our sacred places. And that's exactly what they've done. I'm not overstating it. They are a foreign occupying force. They've co-opted military, they've co-opted police. But a lot of the military and a lot of the police appear to be waking up, appear to be asking questions. I wonder whether or not they appear to be growing balls, because only action from them against those who would hurt the people of this nation is what's going to help us. But I haven't seen too much evidence of that. And in the Defence Force, it appears things are changing there, particularly if you happen to be a Papua New Guinean and you'd like to have Australian citizenship and all the benefits that it brings. We're looking to beef up our Australian Defence Force with 10,000 Papua New Guineans. And once again, who can blame them? Why wouldn't you want that? If you're going to fight, and you're going to fight in the Pacific Theatre, as Australia is likely to do, you're probably going to want New Guinea on your side. You could probably, and Penny Wong and a few of her Labor quirky mates flew off to Vanuatu yesterday to plead Australia's case to not be taking it up the Jacksie from Vanuatu via China. They're over there telling everybody how magnificently important they are. They'll also be shoveling bucket loads of money somewhere. And you know how corrupt the whole system works here in Australia. Can you imagine what they're going to do? They'll be hiding it in coconuts over there. It'll be just raining money. And it'll be raining Australian dollars, might be raining US dollars. It'll also be raining Chinese yuan. So some of those little Pacific nations are going to do wonders. I'm wondering whether or not their nation is going to be offered citizenship of Australia if they decide to come and serve with the Australian military, the Defence Forces. I don't know. Interesting times, folks. Interesting times. And I don't know. All right, I'm going to have to run and let you go because it's that time of the morning where you've got to go and do things, and I should probably let you go and do them. I will be back tonight with another little bit of a chat with, well, whatever breaks through the day. We'll see what comes up. And just before I go, I would mention one more time the passing of Black Sheep's father, Jeff, passed away this morning. A couple of hours ago or thereabouts now. So thoughts are with Black Sheep and his family for the rest of the day and the days ahead as they make their way through what is a difficult time. Love you, folks. Be safe on the roads out there today. The dickheads are around. It's a beautiful part of, or a beautiful day in my part of the world. I trust it's the same in yours. We'll talk tonight.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!